Hello, my name is Kyle Cherek, and I host a television show on PBS called Wisconsin Foodie, but today I am here for the Madison College Chef Demo Series presented by Vollrath. And to my right is the First Lady of Pastry and Bakery in America, Gale Gand.
What a nice title. Can I quote you on
Yes!
that? That's great. Thank
you totally are.
Thank you.
So just a quick few accolades.
Yes.
With you right next to me, which is weird and awkward, but James Beard Award for Baking and Pastry in 2001, James Beard Award in 2007 for what you called to me behind stage once your Fancy Pants restaurant, True, for service, which was still a fabulous moment. We were about to go on stage like, oh yeah, and talk about my Fancy Pants restaurant. Yeah, true. A 10-year run on Food Network, and before that, the cooking, I'm reversing them.
It was 8 years on Food Network with Sweet Dreams and 2 years on Cooking Channel.
Cooking Channel, okay. Yeah. So a decade on television teaching us how to bake and cook and do pastry. And you answered, you were the first one to give me a direct answer to the question that I've asked all pastry aficionados, from your colleague Jackie Pfeiffer all the way through to Christina Tosi, who I turned and said, does America have a pastry tradition? And you, when we were doing a demo in the middle of it, I hope you remember this,
I'm waiting
turned
to see
and
if
said,
I do.
yeah, the drop cookie, duh. And I was like, finally, someone has a clear vision.
I was just talking about that Monday. I was teaching a Great British Bake Off class.
Yeah.
So, like, the idea is if you
like
are
get
thinking
rid of the
about
Brits, like bake them off.
If you think that you're going into that tent to compete on the Great British Bake Off, here's some desserts you should know. So we were doing just classic British stuff because I lived there for 3 years.
Yeah.
And as I was teaching that, I was talking about, we were doing a tray bake, which are like bar cookies. They call tray bake. And someone said, oh, it's like a cookie. I'm like, yeah, but they don't have cookies in England or France.
Right.
Like there's the sablé, but they don't have like a chocolate chip cookie, like a peanut butter cookie that's completely American.
Because we do. We're people on the go that want something we can put in our grubby little mitts.
Is that
that's delicious?
Where we're packing lunches?
I think so. that's my food historian 2 cents. So there's so much I want to cover with you. One, favorite stuff to bake with, pastry, all of that, the things that you need that you would never want to give up. I know you have kitchens full of terrific things, and you and I are blessed to be overexposed to some great product, but like things that you really, the things that you would just hate to live without.
Probably my most prized, I got 2 most prized possessions. One is...
Well, you have twins, so you can have 2 most prized possessions, yeah.
One is my rolling pin from my great-grandmother that she brought over from Hungary.
Yeah.
So think about it. This woman is traveling.
Are you Hungarian?
I'm Hungarian.
So am I.
Are you really?
Yeah.
So do you say agasegadra when people sneeze?
Not anymore.
That's how you say, like, God, to your health or whatever. Yeah. So my great-grandma Jenny gets on the boat, comes over with her 3 kids, $8.04 in her pocket, and a rolling pin.
Wow.
Like, I'm leaving the house. I'm packing to leave for America forever. What do I need? And I can only bring one thing. I know, I'll bring my rolling pin. Like, I just love that I'm genetically, connected to that.
And you thought you weren't going to end up a great pastry chef.
Yeah, of course. No one's surprised I'm a pastry chef. So my great-grandmother Jenny's rolling pin, which is like a thin pin that's tapered.
Yeah, right.
And then, I'm sorry I didn't bring them today, but my Julia Child Madeline pan. So I have Julia's pans, and I'm the keeper of them.
Wow.
Which is a great thing.
No pressure.
Right? Well, the funny thing, when I got them, they had crumbs in them. Like the last time she used them, she didn't wash them, I guess. Like she just knocked them out and then put them back on the shelf. And I was testing some recipes for one of my books for chocolate and vanilla, and it has a chocolate Madeleine recipe, and New York calls and they're like, we need to know, how many the recipe makes. We need it by end of day, it's Friday. And I was at home at that point, and the only pans I had in the house were Julia's. And it's like, do I wash them? What do you do?
Yeah, no,
and I have this saying, well, WWJD, which isn't what would Jesus do, it's what would Julia do? And she would totally wash them. Like she would, she wasn't sentimental that way.
Right. So. She dropped a chicken and still made it.
Right.
Yes. On with the show.
Allegedly, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's talk changes in career for women from, let's say, when you entered in the 70s, it was pretty rare, which it oughtn't to have been.
I was almost always the only woman or only girl, we
Right.
called it, in the kitchen at
Right.
that point. And I'm a crossover career person.
Yeah.
So my sort of the first maybe 15 years of my life, I'm a professional musician.
Right, your dad
'Cause
quit
my
his
dad
job
was a
at
folk
40 to
singer.
be a folk singer.
Right,
Yeah.
and I did it as well. You know, I'm sure
Yeah.
you saw me at the Arkansas Folk Festival or the North Carolina Fiddlers Convention or maybe at Expo 67. I
Yeah.
had a week-long gig there in front of the Russian Pavilion
Wow.
in 5th grade.
I didn't
so
see
I
you
do
there.
that for, you know, till I'm about 19. Then I go away to art school and I'm a diamond setter and a
Right.
silver and goldsmith.
Right, right. Which proves that you have great dexterity,
Right.
surgeon's hands.
Got the manual
Not-
dexterity of a surgeon. Don't love the stitching part. I'm a
Okay.
great sewer as well, but not when it
Yeah.
comes to human bodies. So couldn't be a surgeon.
So pastry, a good
And
fallback.
have dyslexia, so can't
Really?
read medical stuff. Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So while I'm in college studying art, and I do finish and get my Bachelor of Fine Arts, I start waitressing and get
Yeah.
thrown in the kitchen. So
Yeah.
that was how I got over to cooking.
And they move you from line cook to pastry when pastry walks out the door, and you're like, I don't want that. That's typecasting, correct?
Right. Well, what it was, the chef I was working for wanted to fire the pastry chef.
Okay.
Roger, in case you're out there, Roger. This is what went down. It wasn't my fault. He said, Gale, I want you to take care of, can you take care of pastry? I want to let Roger go. He's driving me crazy. He's late every day. He doesn't
Yeah.
show up. And I'm like, no, like that's where they always stick women. They stick them in pastry, and I don't want to get typecast.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't worry, like 6 months and I'll let you out.
How'd that work out?
Right? I every so often I have
Just-
dinner with my
just
chef,
saying.
Greg, and I'm like, because he's like, you ready to get out now? I'm like, no, give me like 6 more months.
Is
Like
this Greg in Rochester?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
sure.
that Rick worked
Yeah,
for as well.
yeah.
Exactly, Greg Roman.
Yeah.
And, he recognized that I had what it took.
Yeah.
And that I was very happy there, and he was very happy to have someone take over that part of his kitchen. So as a pastry chef, one of the upsides is you get independence
Mm-hmm.
within a kitchen, family.
Yeah,
you
it's
have
true.
your own little space
Some
and your
autonomy.
own menu. And
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I kind of needed that and wanted that, and it worked well.
Yeah, yeah. So what would you consider your defining voice moment in pastry or baking as you came along? Because it was a position that you didn't pursue. It just was sort of foisted upon you. But
Right.
then you really, grabbed hold of it. But when did you feel like I'm not just someone in that position, but now I'm the pastry chef or the baker that I aspired to be, that I have a voice.
Yeah, I don't know if I know that moment. I'm trying to think even like how I got over to desserts and pastry.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in art school, a bunch of my friends were photographers because I went to RIT, which is a big photo school.
Yeah.
And some of them wanted to be food photographers, so they needed props to shoot. And so I would make like these, elaborate apple tarts for them, or
Yeah.
I would do the food styling. So that was how I kind of got cooking into my college stuff.
And were you waiting tables then?
I was like a garmager and
Okay,
dessert girl
yeah.
at night. I worked at the university club.
Yeah.
I made like thousands of hors d'oeuvres into the night. Some of my paintings are even like sheet trays of thousands of hors d'oeuvres, and it says chef's hell at the bottom.
Wow.
It's like Dante's Inferno. And
Yeah.
it was, seventh ring of hell, and it's
Just endless.
hors d'oeuvres. Yeah.
Just endless.
So there was a time when my visual art and my cooking was intermingling.
Came together.
I was, and at the sort of towards the end of my silver and goldsmithing years, I was making like sommelier tasting cups and tea strainers and doing these whole tabletop sculptural
So
things
you
with
totally
menus
had
in
the
the back.
food bug.
Oh,
Yeah. Even you didn't
And
know it, but
we
you
were
had
talking
it.
about no, I had already. It was freshman year in college when I was waitressing just for the staff meal of it.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, one of the line cooks didn't show up, and my manager looked at me and she said, "Gale, can you cook?" And I said, "No, I'm from the North Shore of Chicago. We make reservations." And I was sort of a privileged white kid. And she threw an apron at me and she says, "You can cook now. Get in the kitchen." And I was literally shoved in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I have about 6 seconds where I'm completely terrified because I've never cooked
Which
professionally.
is healthy.
And second number 7, and I get choked up every time I talk about it, I get this sense of calm come over me, like I'd found my home.
Wow.
and it was like I was speaking a foreign language that I don't remember learning, but I knew it fluently.
Wow.
And it's sort of like a calling, and
Yeah.
I always sort of feel like I didn't really choose it, it chose me.
Sure.
And will not let me go.
Will not let you go.
Right. I don't
That's why your
tire
grandmother
of it.
carried that rolling pin.
Right.
Across the Atlantic.
Either that or for,
Yeah.
to defend herself. It might
Yeah,
have
or
been
maybe a little of both.
Self-defense,
Yeah,
perhaps.
yeah.
But it was that moment when I figured out what I really wanted to do. And I ran home and I called my parents. I was so excited. I called my dad. Dad, guess what? I know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm 19 at the time. I want to be a chef. And he goes, oh, gay. That's not a very reliable business.
Says the folk singer.
That's what I said to him. I'm like, you're a folk singer. And he goes, and a jazz trumpet player. Because he was. And he's like, well, gay, I guess everyone's got to eat.
Right.
So that was his rationale.
Right.
And I didn't think that was a very supportive thing to say. But now, you have that weird thing where as you get older, your parents seem wiser.
Yes.
And I think, you know what? He was right. Everyone does have to eat. And I ended up picking an art form that connects me with people on a daily basis, doing something that you can't live without.
Right.
Music is nice,
Yeah.
but you could live without it.
Would hate to, but we could.
Right, but you wouldn't die.
Yeah.
If you don't eat,
Right.
you die. And, this is something that's sort of a fundamental covenant between
Yes.
people. And
Yes.
so I just adore it. I love the craft of it. I love the art of it. I love the dance of it. I love the connection. I love the nurturing, the entertainment, the chemistry, the physics. It's so big and so fulfilling. And, I've been doing it over 40 years now, and I just don't tire of it.
There's always an avenue in, and you're always surprised.
And I'm always learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always learning and teaching myself stuff. There's not so many people for me to learn from anymore. When I first got started, I went to La Varenne in Paris to study. And I was more there to kind of verify that what I had taught myself was right.
Right.
Like, am I, doing my puff pastry book fold right? Or am I piping this correctly? Or is, soft peak really this?
Go to the source where they have 100
the French.
forever year tradition, multi-100-year tradition, where they invented it basically.
Right.
Yeah. When you were and you were in school then, I remember you told me you had crazy hours.
I was working.
Or in school rather, and you were
I was working for Greg Broman at the Strath Allen in Rochester, and I would take like 2 or 3 weeks off in the summer to go to La Varenne.
Yeah.
And the hotel would loan me the money, and then like take it out of my paycheck so I could pay it back.
Wow.
And so they made it possible that I could go to school in Paris.
And sleeping on the floor at a friend's
I was sleeping.
apartment.
God, you have a great memory. Yes, my friend Muriel. I slept on her floor. I actually worked at a bakery in the mornings. I'd get there at 4 a.m. and work from 4 to 10, and then school.
And then go to class.
Yeah, then walk over to class. School started at 10.
And then until like 5 or 6, right?
Yeah, I think it was till 5, and then I would actually make whatever we learned in class. I would make it that night for my friend Muriel and her boyfriend.
And that was like rent.
It was just to practice
Here
and
you
be
go.
nice and whatever, to show off.
Yeah.
And just a repetition. A lot of what we do is repetition. Yeah, and then try to get a couple hours sleep, and then.
So the path of a woman chef, and you are one of. There's not that many that I can interview that have seen and lived through the transition. Mm-hmm. So someone on the other, like a Christina Tosi, where it's just, well, sure, she can have all this power, she can have these books, she can have this career, and it's not really that big of a deal. For you, it was not a given thing that you'd even get chances in the kitchen.
Right.
And talk about that experience.
And there were a few kitchens where I went to interview for kitchen jobs, and they said no.
No.
Yeah. They said no because you're a woman. They said no because you don't have enough experience. I'm like, how am I supposed to get experience if you won't hire me?
You realize there's a catch-22.
I like to go back to those guys and be like, how about now?
Yeah.
How do you like me now?
Well, talk about Waxman, who's a pillar in the culinary world, who won the James Beard finally a couple of years ago. He's like the, Graham Elliott described him to me as the Obi-Wan of cooking.
That would be an accurate description,
But
yes.
so you're in Jams, which is California cuisine, come to New York.
Right, 1985.
He stakes is in the ground.
First celebrity chef to kind of hit New York from California.
Yeah, and it's an all-woman kitchen.
Right.
Yeah.
There was one man who was gay, so we considered that all-female kitchen.
Okay.
He was on the grill. But otherwise, and Stephanie was the chef de cuisine,
Exec
which
chef,
she's
yeah,
sort
or
of,
chef
you know,
de-
people
yep.
talk about Stephanie and she's famous and
Yeah.
well loved. And
Yeah.
I had interviewed at 7 different restaurants. I had like one weekend to find myself a job in New York, and I went to 7 different restaurants, and Jams was the one that said, do you want to come back tonight and stage?
Right on.
And I said, absolutely. And that was sort of part of the, you know,
Yeah.
the interview test.
Sure.
Was like, will you come back?
Yeah.
And how bad do you want this?
And
I came back, and it was an all-female kitchen. It was an open kitchen.
Yeah, I know, the theater of it. Never been done in American culinary history before.
Right.
Where customers came in for a place, they'd waited 4 weeks in New York for a reservation or longer.
For
and it's-
roast chicken
For roast chicken.
and fries.
California style roast chicken, and it's all women.
Yeah.
And I get goosebumps about this now.
And I'd never been in an environment like that. I'd worked in kitchens where I was the only woman or maybe one of 2.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we'd kind of protect each other. But think about it, most restaurants don't have 2 changing rooms, or didn't at that time.
Right.
So you kind of just waited for all the guys to leave, or you just got dressed in front of them. You know, you were constantly being tested and harassed, and, you know, if you tell someone if you're going to go in the walk-in, like, if I don't come out in a couple minutes, like, come get me, because that means somebody grabbed me in the walk-in.
Wow.
So it was, you know, harassment was sort of part of the gig.
Yeah.
And I, at an early age, I had some sexual harassment actually as a youngster, and so had some techniques for how to deflect stuff, and
Yeah.
just so I was okay, but I definitely got advances.
Yeah.
So when I went to work for Jonathan Waxman, it was an all-female kitchen, and it was such a different environment. When we sat down for family meal, people would say, like, what do you got left on your prep list? Like, let me help you, I'm all done with my stuff.
Right.
Or, you know, does anybody need help? Is everybody okay? Like, there was this checking on each other and this
Yeah.
taking care of each other that didn't exist in other restaurants. Other restaurants, it was like they were sabotaging each other, you know, hiding shit from each other, and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
hiding your knives, or I don't know.
Right,
There's,
messing
I
with
guess,
the fish,
Yes,
yeah.
I guess there's something funny about, you know, taking a bite out of your prep, or
Yeah.
changing where the sheet pan was so you can't find it.
That's not funny.
But at Jams, we were
Yeah.
a team. It
Yeah.
was literally the most sort of team sport kitchen I'd ever worked in. And then when service was going on, we would actually like wear magenta and cyan wigs and put on makeup. Like, we wore red lipstick, and like we were performing.
Yeah, yeah. And Waxman was fine with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, completely. Actually,
Yeah.
he wasn't in the kitchen a lot.
Right, I know.
Because he was a celeb
He was
chef.
glamour pussing in the papers.
He was like on the phone with Vogue magazine,
Yeah.
and he'd come down during the day, he'd come down to the kitchen in like docksiders and khaki shorts, and he'd come over and like you might be plating a salad, and he'd go, more up, darling, a little more up, please. Which meant, like, because we had this technique we did where you put your fingers through the lettuce and lift them up.
California cuisine,
to
stack it up.
get the lettuce to stand up.
Yeah.
And like that would be it. That'd sort of be our contact with him for the night. But it was delicious food, and it was a fun time.
So what would you tell women chefs now in the industry that are a couple years in, about to get in, you know, looking at it?
Don't do it. No, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You know, if the thing that happens in the restaurant business is if you have the inclination to do it, I don't even know that you can choose not to. So when I say don't do it, if that scares anybody away, they shouldn't be in the business anyway.
Right, right.
And anyone who's in it, the cool thing is it's so hard that everybody you work with is great at what they do. Like,
Yeah.
you can't be just okay and
Yeah.
last in the restaurant business.
Yeah.
So especially when you get to my age at this point, you know, anyone who's lasted this long is like really good at what they do. You know, they're such pros, and they got it down. So you
Yeah.
get to work with all these talented people. So I love that part of it.
It's one of the things that I adore about the craft of the chef, because it's totally authentic. If you say,
Yeah, you can't fake it.
You can't fake it. If you say, I'm this good, and you start in the kitchen, if you're not, everyone knows in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Everyone knows you're talking BS, and you don't even have to say anything. And they don't have to say anything, because you'll know that they know.
I don't even think you'll stay in it that
Yeah,
long. Like,
right,
you couldn't. Like, it
right.
would be too embarrassing and too uncomfortable.
just
but for me,
so
like, I
sincere.
can't stay away. Like, just give me a bowl and a rubber spatula. I will just fold all day long. Like, I could pipe up zillion truffles, and I'm so happy with the motion of it and trying to get this one better than the last one. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's so right for me
Right.
and for what my brain loves to do and what my body loves to do. I love the repetition. I love there's this sort of reliability to your ingredients because they always act the same. It's chemistry and physics. It doesn't change. That's like a constant. There aren't many things in this world that are constant.
It's true.
And every time I, whip up room temperature butter, it always takes on air. Like it does it every time. Like I can count on it. It's something I can, always know is there for me.
It's easier than relationships.
Yes, much easier.
Which is my segue with these to a time that your husband told you how to cook something.
Oh.
And
my current husband.
Yes, your current husband, and you.
I said to him, gee, honey, I don't remember where we put your James Beard Awards, but mine are right here. Yes, I use them to defend myself if I get any criticisms about it. I was making shrimp risotto.
Yeah.
And I was going to do some grating of Parmesan cheese tableside. I thought this is just at home for dinner.
Sure.
But true, you do something tableside, you can up the price by $10. So I would layer on some tableside. I brought a grater over and a block of cheese, and I'm going to grate from on high so it sprinkles down like snow. And my husband goes, he's Sicilian, right? And he goes, really? Dairy with seafood? I'm like, oh, is that a thing?
Yeah.
You don't put those together.
Yeah.
And that's when I brought up, where's your James Beard Awards? Yeah, and one's for best service.
Right.
So
right.
if I'm pouring some wine and he goes, really, that glass with that wine?
Yeah.
I just whip out the best service award.
So 2001 for pastry.
Yeah.
And you set a new standard in pastry in America with that award, and with your books.
Wow.
You just did. It's just the truth. And then 2007 for service.
Best service.
Best
That's
service,
my staff.
I know, yeah, at True.
My killer staff. They're
fancy
They're like
pants restaurant.
synchronized swimmers. They four of them swoop to the table and all pour water at the same time and then disappear. We called it seamless service.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
It was great.
What frustrated you and what challenged you during those years at True, in particular when you were evolving desserts and pastry?
What frustrated? When the hotline guys use my chinois for lobster stock, that's the kind of stuff that frustrates me.
Yes.
We didn't have 2 VitaPrep blenders. We only had one. And the guys would use it to grind up pheasant bones to make pheasant stock.
Yeah.
But I needed it for my raspberries for my sorbet.
With that amazing kitchen.
We only had budget for one, so do you know what I did? Rick and I got asked if we would do one of those ads, famous chefs naked with their blender.
Okay.
We were divorced at that point when they asked us to do it. I'm like, and it was going to be he got the couch, but I got the blender.
Yeah.
And you're naked, and then you hold it. And I asked Rick, and he's like, and we had both remarried at that point.
Yeah.
It's
This is weird.
I think our spouses would be uncomfortable. I'm
Sure.
like, you're right. Why didn't I think of that? So I called them to say, no, we're not going to do the blender ad. And they said, well, how about just you by yourself? And I thought, I really need a blender. And that's what you get. You get a free blender.
Vollrath
So I took
makes an
one for the
amazing
team.
blender.
Do they?
Yeah, they had an amazing blender.
Do I have to pose naked with
I
it
don't
or
think
no?
so. I don't think so. I think
Because I left mine at True, and I don't have one
Sure,
now.
no, I don't want to speak for them, but I think a chef's coat is probably more appropriate. Yeah.
Cool.
Just use it in good faith.
Blenders.
Yeah.
That's a frustrating thing for me at True. But then I got my own.
Sure. Okay.
And look up the ad. It's really cute.
And so, what were those were the challenges?
Well, I'm trying to think, and lighting, which
Yeah.
isn't really a challenge, but we had some fluorescent lighting that just wasn't becoming to the food, and to be under fluorescence all day long sometimes it's hard. So later we got gels to put over the light fixtures. Yeah. But frustrations, I was frustrated that Mick Jagger came in, that George Clooney was there.
Right.
That I got to meet, Carol Burnett.
Yeah.
No.
Bocuse shows up.
Bocuse, Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
That Michael Jordan didn't order dessert. That frustrated me.
There we go.
He's a cheese guy. And when Oprah came in, fruit bowl, fruit plate.
Yeah, well,
So that's kind of...
he's one of the greatest athletes in the world, and she was trying to stay slim.
Right.
So,
I get it. No,
what
I
are you
get
going
it,
to do?
but-
Yeah, cool.